particular inquiry this month is get this transformation. Transformation. Like any yoga teacher worth their salt ought to have this word transformation somewhere on their brochure, right? It's very like capturing and inspiring, I suppose. And there's somewhat exhilarating, at least in the sort of common sense of like when I say transformation, there's a like, ooh, there's a lift that happens when we aspire to move in that direction. And the deep assumption in that um, response is that this transformation, this movement from here to there, from A to B to C, is desirable or so-called positive. The change that occurs is one that we might delight in, right? And I'd like to slow down the train a little bit and look at this a little more frame by frame and consider that transformation occurs at every moment. It's all transformation. At no point is this creation in some sort of stasis or like suspended moment, right? Like the turning of your cells and the beating of your heart and the pulse of your inhalation and your exhalation are all, and the revolving of the planet around the sun and the turning of weather patterns and the migrating of fish, it's all like layered versions of transformation. And we call it transformation when it sort of couples with our identity. We feel like our identity is moving from here into a more open place. And that's important, certainly. That, that's a big part of the yoga process. And to kind of pull back just a touch further and look at, I think, an important yoga teaching that goes hand in hand with this idea of transformation is some reflection on what's called the three gunas, right? Which are the three kind of elemental forces that we can recognize in any life, any and all life experience. I've been reflecting on the gunas for some 20 years, and I haven't found a single one experience, transformation or otherwise, where the gunas weren't apparent. And I'm still looking, and I haven't been just, I've always see them. And these are like three primary colors, the three primary colors. If I held up a brochure and it says, fantastic vacation in Mexico, and there's me on a rock, and I'm doing a handstand or scorpion or something, and there's the blue sea and macaws flying overhead in the background. We go, wow, that's some retreat. But if I zoom in and I look at this brochure a little closer, what I don't see is Mexico and scorpion pose. What I see are little red dots, little yellow dots, little blue dots, like that, arranged in just such a way so as to give you this impression of this larger story. And the gunas are something like that are coloring our mental space or perception. So what are these three gunas? The first is called tamas, which is the energy of density, heaviness, inertia, right? It's what gives your mental space the feeling of being real. I am this. Ever get like angry and very convinced of like how right I am? Something. This I am right. How that like turning up the dial of like realness and rightness and meanness. That's all tamasic energy. That's what tamasic, as opposed to being spacious, right? As opposed to being accepting. as opposed to, well, this is coming, this is going, and not knuckling down. So the energy of density, heaviness, and inertia. And then the other, that the actual agent of this thing we call change, what drives transformation, is something called rajas. And what rajas means is the energy of activity, movement. Anything that moves in this creation, including your heartbeat and your progression through time, first as an infant and then as a young man or woman, and here we are, right? All that, the ticking of the clock is on account of rajas. It's all movement and change, right? So when we talk about, and the last one is lightness or purity, which is, you can maybe best relate to this if you go spend time in nature or sacred sites or just after meditation. There's like more space, less reactivity, things like contentment or peace would be evidence of the actual development of this sattvic energy, right? So transformation on a cosmic scale, when we talk about transformation, what we're pointing at is the energy, like the energy of Rajaguna, the force of change itself, moving in a desirable direction. And an important teaching in yoga is to develop some measure of equanimity and acceptance amid whatever direction transformation happens to go. Sometimes it moves in a direction that's favorable. Sometimes it moves in a direction that's unfavorable. But to develop a kind of sattvic view, right? One that is broad and accepting and insightful is an exercise in yoga. Okay, so we can either be moving, and here's the crux of it all. We can be moving either in a tamasic direction, a direction of heaviness and inertia, or moving in a sattvic direction. Now, here's the catch. As my teacher said, climbing is hard and slipping is easy. Climbing is hard and slipping is easy. It takes some concentrated effort, something like showing up at a yoga class or reading a book or having a daily meditation or prayer or, making time for your grandchildren or, the things that are the very marrow of our relationship, the meaningful marrow of our relationship to this world. It takes a little extra nudge. Remember, tamas is just gravity, right? As where things tend to go. So to move in a sattvic direction typically takes a little bit of friction, a little bit of going against the tamas, the weight of tamas, or getting too enveloped in rajas and distracted and unable to kind of like harness your energies or focus them, right? So it's more reactive. Okay. So in practice, what this looks like this evening is, and by the way, these three energies are mapped in your body, like different categories of postures. We'll develop more tamasic, rajasic, sattvic energy. We are going whole hog in more of a sattvic direction. You'll see what I mean when we're done playing with these pixels. We're done playing with the primary colors. We got 3 crayons and we're going to scribble around. And you'll see a kind of like sunset mosaic type of level of satisfaction. That's what we're aiming. Okay. Peace, my friends. All right, let's start on your backs with your heads towards me.